Nubian Incognito.
All right, so welcome to the Nubian Incognito family. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview. I'm really excited. I like to talk about a wide range of topics.
Yeah.
You know, some of them are entertaining, some of them are educational, and being that the brand is here to bridge the gap of Black cultures, understanding what other Black people are going through in other countries is important. And what you go through is highly determined by your environment, and your environment is controlled by your government.
Exactly.
So being that I did a series in the UK, I definitely wanted to make sure that I addressed Brexit and just all the other topics associated with the British government or the UK government, because I feel like even me being an American, it's something that I don't really have a clear grasp on. Not something that's taught to an extent. We learn a lot about our government, and then we don't learn the government of other countries. And so, that's just a little spiel. So, being that you're well versed in that, I guess we'll just get right into the topic. So, the first question is, what is the Brexit deal?
Okay, so in regards to the Brexit deal, it's a bit of a weird one. So we're just kind of like looking at how the UK can leave the European Union like very smoothly. So like I'm trying to say this in like lay terms, so like not overcomplicate it, but so not overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, like what's the point? But the Brexit deal, just looking at a withdrawal agreement, so that when we leave this like political and economic union that the UK has joined like since like 1973, we leave smoothly. So we still have clarification on our trading agreements. We still have clarification on our relationship with our other European Union countries. So that when we leave ultimately with a good relationship. So that I think that's the best way to summarize what the Brexit deal was about. So,
so basically Brexit is the UK leaving the European Union.
That's the best way to put it in like lay terms. If I was to ask you what is Brexit, it's just the UK finding grounds and finding a good relationship to leave the European Union.
Why is the UK leaving the European Union?
Okay, so this is when it gets a bit like political, I feel like. So cool. The reason why we're leaving the European Union is because of the vast majority of the population voted. So it was 52% of the population that voted to leave, and 48% of the population voted to remain in the European Union. So that's the actual reason.
So there was an election, and then people voted.
Okay, so it was a referendum. So basically, it was a referendum is kind of like giving the vote to the people.
Okay.
So at the time, there was a prime minister called David Cameron. And I'm not sure
exactly. And is he like the president of the UK or?
No, so David Cameron was the prime minister. So the prime minister kind of like looks at the laws of the UK, kind of like implements it. So they work within the government. So it's more implementation. So I think what was happening, there was like a political kerfuffle, and I think it was especially around the NHS. So you know the NHS is like our healthcare.
So it's the National Health Services in the UK.
Yeah, and I think what's happening for a long, long, long time, the NHS has been suffering from financial problems, and I think a lot of people blamed the European Union because you have to pay to be a part of the European Union. So I think there was a lot of kerfuffle on how we can like revive our dying NHS, and all these things about how much money we're paying to the European Union and how we're the strongest country in the European Union. We don't need it. We don't need to be a part of this political economic union anymore. It doesn't benefit us as it once did ages ago. Because you have to remember that we only joined the European Union in 1973 because there was so much crossfire within the European Union, within these countries. So it was kind of like the first thing to kind of like unite us all. So people were basically arguing like, why are we still in this union when we are all cool, basically. Like, we're all cool. Like, let's just scrap it out because we're spending billions of pounds into this union. So I think what had happened was that there was a referendum. And people always say to this day that David Cameron never expected us to actually leave. And it was an improper procedure. It was an improper procedure. He wasn't allowed to do that. It was ill-mannered. He didn't have the authority. The government actually didn't have the authority to
open the referendum. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this referendum was what year? What year was this referendum?
Thank you for listening to the Nubian Incognito podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast channel for more fire episodes. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nubian Incognito. If you have any responses or questions to anything you've heard on the show, at us and use the hashtag Nubian Incognito. Check out our website at nubianincognito.com for our fire global collection of jewelry and hats.
2016.
Okay. I think I remember seeing on Twitter one morning that, like, when the results came out and then everyone was just like, wait, I didn't think that people would actually vote to leave the EU.
Exactly. And I think that was the problem, was because that's the issue with now with the government, was like, you're now doing more than your powers are delegated to you. Because what it is that Parliament, like, is the only body that can make and repeal laws. So they're the only ones that can make laws, and they're the only ones that can take laws back. And the government's job is just to implement it thoroughly and to implement it and execute it efficiently. Okay. And what David Cameron had done by holding a referendum was basically reverse Parliament's law, that being when we first joined the European Union. But because this is when it gets political, because it's a referendum, you can't take away the people's vote, because our constitution, our uncodified constitution, is based around democracy. So this is the rights of people. So this is when it gets technical, because people say, okay, well, if it was an ill-mannered decision and he wasn't allowed to do so, just wipe it away. But we base everything, like, in the US, I think you guys have a codified constitution, and like you guys make constant references towards it. We don't have that. So everything we do is based around democracy and the rights of people and individuals. If the people had voted to leave, we have to do so, even though it kind of contradicts how law works. Yeah. Okay.
So my question is, from what it seems like, granted, this is a platform that is specifically for people of color.
Yeah.
So in the political climate when Brexit was going on, were people of color or were minorities and women more in favor of leaving the EU or more in favor of staying in the EU? And young people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So at the time, right, because I'm born in August, I was too young to vote.
Okay.
But what you found was that a lot of Black people and a lot of ethnic minorities wanted to remain in the EU. And I think it's because of one or two reasons. That being that we don't know what life is outside the European Union, and people are afraid of change. And what you find is that in the UK, especially with the way things are set up, like ethnic minorities aren't really the people that, like, especially Black people that know so much about politics and know so much about what will benefit us if we leave and what will not benefit us when we leave. So the best thing, I think, when I spoke to a lot of people, was just to stay, because people were very comfortable living their lives that they were living now. And all they heard was, okay, if we leave, this, like, we're not going to be able to travel and all these things, whilst you had other race groups who were looking at national, like, independence and looking at the NHS side and was more technical and started looking at the actual details. So you found that because a lot of, I'm not going to generalize it and say Black people don't do their research, but there was a lot of ethnic minorities who would rather than researching about it, they just felt like, let's just not leave. Whilst you had a lot of, like, different race groups researching, thinking, actually, let's just go, like, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, the reason why, even though it seems like everybody's against Brexit, the reason why Brexit is happening is because a lot of young Black people were fed the idea to remain. And then you had the older Black people as well, especially, that can't vote. And then you had the white old like people, conservative especially, who were knowledgeable and had the rights to vote and did so. So a lot of black people didn't vote because there was this expectation we wouldn't leave.
Okay, so when you mentioned that some black people couldn't vote, are these just black immigrants? Like, why are some people not able to vote?
Okay, so when I mean, like, for example, like me, right, I couldn't vote because I was underage.
Okay.
So, but I still understood a bit about like what was happening, like in terms of politics. So, for example, a lot like the Labour Party, which people have the tendency to kind of like link directly to like standing up for ethnic minorities and like nationalising everything. They appeal to younger youth, where they say like, okay, stay in the EU. They want to cut down. They want to increase taxes. They want to cut student fees. Like, they appeal to the younger generation, and they were mostly pushing for Remain. And even if I wanted to vote, I couldn't because I was under 18. Whilst you had conservatives, which are for, like, personally, I think are more like, you know, lower to taxes, kind of like protecting upper class and middle class. They could vote because they mostly appeal to middle-aged white men and female women. Yeah, so it was that reason why. Yeah.
So what are the benefits of Brexit for the UK?
Okay, so the benefits of us actually like leaving if we leave. Personally, I think it's weird. I think that if we leave, there's things like the money, especially, like we spend a lot of money. I couldn't give you a figure now, but we definitely spend millions. We're one of the top 3 alongside Italy that spend a lot of money to be in this European Union, because at the end of the day, it's not cheap. So I think the money could be allocated somewhere else, and I think that was the impression a lot of people had when they voted to leave the European Union, that yes, we're going to save our NHS and we're going to invest money into infrastructure and we're going to solve the housing issue and we're going to do all these things with the money instead of putting it into the European Union. And I guess that could potentially happen if we do, because then we'll be saving millions and those millions have to go somewhere. I think another thing that will be a benefit of leaving the European Union is that we can actually form relationships with other countries aside from countries within the European Union, because right now, for example, we're in the custom union and the single market. So we have the same negotiations with countries that other European countries have within the European Union. But once we leave, we'll be able to have freedom of negotiation, be able to negotiate at our own free will as our own country, as opposed to the European Union making our decisions for us. So there's that level of independence and that level of kind of like, in a way, exploiting like globalization. So having that opportunity to form our own trading agreements and our own bargaining stuff, and do you know what I mean? Having that level of independence as a country. So yeah, I think those two would definitely be a benefit of us leaving, and there's probably a lot more.
Okay. So are you in favor of leaving or staying?
You see, in the beginning, I felt like, why did we leave? Like, I didn't understand it. As I said before, like, if I did have the opportunity to vote, I would have voted to stay.
Okay.
But now looking at this and seeing how long it's dragged, as I said before, the referendum was held in 2016 and we're now currently in 2019, right? And you kind of just think, like, when is this actually going to end? Like, there's been the consequences we're trying to avoid from having a no deal is happening, like, in a sense, like, we're seeing the shortcomings of it, like political uncertainty, disarray, the pound, and all these things, right? And it's now just kind of like, I want to leave. Like, I want to leave, and I just want to leave because I want us to see what we can do when we leave. Because being in this midst of not knowing the next step is doing us as an economy really badly. So, yeah, I think now, if you asked me maybe a year ago, I would have been like, oh, we should have just stayed, hold a second referendum. But now I'm just thinking, you know what? We already look like a messy country. We might as well like, we actually, no, seriously, like, if you actually deep it and you actually, like, think about it, like, the UK looks like a mess. Like, you live in the US, and I know they probably...
We look like a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, you look like a mess, but the world looks like a mess, to be honest. I mean, the world looks like a mess, but you know what I mean? Like, at some point, we have to accept that, okay, yeah, it might not have been the best decision, but let's just see what we can do from there.
On this episode's Nubian Incognito Put You On segment, we have JB Scofield out of London. His name is JB Scofield. We're going to be listening to the song Stretch It. Now, I told you guys about these playlists. Make sure you check out our playlist that has JB's song, and make sure you check out part 2 because we have someone who is called, I don't know, you gotta tune into part 2 to find out.
Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, yo. My bro just came from Dubai, now he wants 4 wives. Man, I told him that's madness. Money make the world do backflips. Make sure you keep it all together, elastic. Stretch it, make sure the money do backflips. This one must have came from. If I say it, then it's gonna be a long thing. What you mean, man? I sound like this guy. Which guy? I don't even know what they on. Let me sip my tea. Can't take me for a mug. Man, I've done it sometime. About time, let it clock. Mothers never ended up in McDonald's, and I haven't had a trophy in a long time. Must have thought that I played for the Gunners. Just came back from my mothers. See my guys, yeah, we don't do hat tricks. My guy put 4 and he come like I was sharing fresh trim when I step. I don't do no capping. Facts, like how you say you run this game? I'm ahead of this game. True say that I lapped it, and I took a trip down to Monaco. Went out to Paris. I feel like I'm. Thought I was gonna say it in back pay. These times I was up in late. Flew down the M1. That's more like Kante. They do threads on Twitter and ranting. Doing the most. True say that money is power. So when you get money, keep quiet and ghost. I remember when I shot my shot, but I didn't have guap, so I hit the post. But next time it's a golden goal. And if bro pulls up in the thing on the AUX local, we bang it on roads. And you know that our brother got options, I never been picky, so I'm grabbing both. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, yo. My bro just came from Dubai, now he wants 4 wives. Man, I told him that's madness. Money make the world do backflips. Make sure you keep it all together, elastic. Stretch it, make sure the money do backflips. This one must have came from. If I say it, then it's gonna be a long thing. Stretch it. Must have thought that we came out from nothing. Back then, man, we didn't have Sky Sports. What game? Like I didn't even watch it. OT, always get love when we go OT. My bro G Millie keep stacking up racks. Weighing up, now you don't go sleep. Aye. Are you taking a piss? Netflix, man, we shooting clips. Got my guy doing overtime on a Sunday night, he was taking risks. Phone bros don't pull up outside, that's nothing but vibes. Treat my guys like siblings. Hop in the car like a GTA, try and go, yeah, we doing missions. My bro touch NJ, he back came with a big stack like, yo, it's a madness. Keep the money under the mattress, if you try talking your name, they capping, stressing, they stressing. I don't even know them man there, this one must have came from. If I say it, then it's gonna be a mad thing. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it, make sure the money do. Stretch it.
Okay, so from my research, this no deal will happen next month. So I wanted to know how Brexit would affect travel specifically for people in the UK and then for people visiting the UK.
I think that for people visiting the UK, like within the European Union, they will find more trouble than, like, let's say, a US citizen coming to the UK, because I mean, more or less it's the same. You still have to get a visa. So,
as a US citizen, or are you saying in general?
So as a US citizen, I'm talking about in 2 scopes of it. So a US citizen coming to the UK, Brexit you won't really feel the impact of Brexit, because you always had to have such a not rigorous, but apply for a visa. You've always had to go an extra mile to come and visit, as opposed to me going to visit a country like, for example, like this a few weeks ago, I visited Italy. I just went with my British passport. But now leaving the European Union, I might have to start applying for a visa. And I think that's where it's going to affect people the most, because we're so used to having freedom of people, services, goods, where we've never had to do that much paperwork. Now leaving, every country you visit, that being Amsterdam, which is 40-minute flight, France, Italy, Spain, you have to apply for a visa. And I think people are not exactly the same.
Okay, so basically, if you're visiting Amsterdam or another country, you would need to apply for a visa.
Yeah.
Wow.
As opposed to now, where we could just go with our British passport.
Okay, so that means, what about an American visiting another country outside of the UK? Like, that wouldn't change anything?
Not to my knowledge. Not that
Okay.
I think it would be exactly the same. I think probably like, in fact, I predict, I may not be right because politics stuff is that there's not really a conclusive answer.
Right.
But I predict that it might actually be even easier for you guys to, I'm not sure about other European countries, but to come to the UK. Because what happens is, as I said before, is that we have to form our own trading agreements now, our own trading agreements with the US, with other countries and whatnot, not on the back of the EU. So what you might find is that a lot of countries will use the idea of, okay, make it easier for our citizens to have visas, and we'll give you this in exchange in our new trading agreement. Okay. And I think that's the problem a lot of people had, is that a lot of countries are going to have the one up on us because we're going to be in a very vulnerable position. We're not going to have, if we leave with a no deal, we'll be in a very vulnerable position. We won't have any trading partners. We're going to be forced to take whatever they offer us, and that might be visas. We want more visas as a country, and we want so it might be easier for you guys, to be honest.
Okay. How will Brexit affect people who want to immigrate to the UK? Like, people who want to live in the UK and become a UK citizen?
Okay. I think if you're from the US and stuff like that, I feel like you won't really be affected.
What about people from like Africa or?
I feel like it might even. With that, it's a bit tricky because I think there's a lot of like speculation that like, okay, there's this whole idea that the idea of Brexit anyway is a bit racist. Not racist, but I think it's a bit discriminatory because like this is not concrete facts. I just want to put that out there. But like there was this like consensus, I think, that a lot of people felt like when we leave the EU that we'll be able to get like our job back. And I mentioned that on my page that a lot of people felt like other European migrants, people from abroad were taking UK citizen, not like British citizen jobs. So they felt like tightening that border, making it harder, will kind of like increase their job prospects. So what it is that there's this whole idea that the UK is kind of shifting to like a more, I wouldn't say racist, but maybe discriminatory country. And what you might find is that, freedom of people coming over, leaving and stuff like that might be more tight knit, in the sense that they're really looking into it, like who can come into our country and who's allowed to leave and stuff like that. And I think, especially from Africa, like I'm from Nigeria, it's already difficult to come to the UK. It's already very difficult to come to the UK. Like people apply for visas, I know, multiple times and get rejected multiple times. And I think when we leave Brexit, they're just going to have more of an excuse to tighten it up. So they might have issues, but it's issues they've already faced. It's issues that they're currently facing now anyway.
Nubian Incognito believes that music brings black people of all cultures together. Follow us at Nubian Incognito on Apple Music, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Remember, Nubian Incognito puts you on. We have curated playlists with black music from artists all over the world.
Okay. I would say, like, just my perspective on immigration to America is the same thing, especially like for Ghanaians specifically. I know that it's hard for them to get citizenship here in America. So I was just wondering, how people would want to move to the UK, how that would actually work. So my next question would be, how will Brexit affect college students or uni students?
Okay. Yeah. So currently now I'm in uni.
Okay.
And I feel like Brexit's kind of affected my uni life in a way. So if we start for one, the standard of living has already increased And as a student, you're struggling anyway. So Brexit, like the cost of living has actually increased. Like rent prices. Like my rent price, I'm going into my last year, October, but my rent price has already increased by like £50, and that's just because there's so much political instability going on. The cost of food has obviously increased because now the pound, so you don't get as much for that same pound. That there's that aspect of it, and then you have the actual aspects of us being able to go to different universities within the EU and study there. And if we leave, and now there's a bit of this like uncertainty. Like right now, it's more or less, it hasn't really been altered that much because we haven't actually left yet. But there's the worry that when we leave, we won't be able to go to a different country and study a degree because we don't have that right there anymore, and they won't have that right in the UK anymore at all. I think there's something that they can apply for. Find the name. There's something that they can apply for right now in the UK that can let them like stay for like maybe like I think 3 years or a few months. Yeah. So it's like EU migrants, and they can stay for like 3 years, a few months, apply for permanent British citizenship. But obviously, there's no guarantee that you'll be approved.
So people could potentially be removed from school after Brexit.
Potentially, yeah, because I think there's a thorough process because they can't speak on it too much because obviously you haven't left. But I do think that you have to apply for citizenship. Because you won't have that same right to go to school in another country because we're no longer in the EU. Or you might find that as soon as you finished your university, maybe they might give us a few years to kind of like settle it in. You might find that they have to move back immediately, as opposed to when they could kind of like work here because they had that EU citizenship right. They might have to just go back to their country because they don't have that right anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, but as of right now, when it comes to financial aid or assistance with students, is it through the UK or the EU disperses the educational funds?
Okay, so is this in regards to like a UK citizen, British citizen, or?
Yeah, so right now we're talking about how Brexit could affect college students, and I'm just thinking about financial aid.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm asking how that.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we get student finance. So student finance that's from the government. I don't think it has, to my knowledge, I don't think the EU funds it, but it's student finance, and I think. Right now, because the cost of living has increased, the maximum grant they give you for like maintenance loan has also increased. I don't know for European citizens if they're able to get student finance. I think it's just a British citizen thing. But what you will find is that because the pound has fallen weaker, the money we're getting doesn't cover everything. And they're not willing to increase it because we're not getting that much money. So financially for a college student, a university student, you might find that we're financially struggling because the government will refuse to give us more money, but and the pound is falling weaker. So we're basically getting less for what we had before. So yeah.
The content of this podcast is explicit and must be used for entertainment purposes. The views and content shared on this podcast does not reflect the brand of Nubian Incognito or its affiliates, and we are not legally responsible for actions taken as a result of listening. We do not own the rights to the music shared on this platform.
Nubian Incognito.